Another episode of What They Said. Phil, Stephen, and Scott, or Scott, Stephen, and Phil, or Stephen, Phil, and Scott, whatever.
Well, I always suggest to put Stephen first because Stephen has seniority. You know?
There you go. Age before beauty.
Then I'm going to go first.
I did not say that.
So anyway, we're on our monthly chat about movies where we choose a couple of movies. I think you guys, I think it was a combination of you two chose these two, and I got to say they're very good choices. Not movies I would even have thought of myself. I mean, maybe the Weather Underground one, because we've sort of been on that, similar subject matter for a couple episodes so far. But anyway, we're going to do the Weather Underground, which I think is from 2006, is it?
Two. I've got it
sorry,
right
2002.
2002.
Okay. And Sarah Polley's Stories We Tell, which is 2012.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're going to start with the Sarah Polley, right? And Stephen, I know I really like what I read of. I think you sort of reviewed the movie twice, actually. You went back and posted your new reactions, or your revamped reactions, and I really like both your reviews. I love the opening line in your original review. I think you say something, I don't have it in front of me, but something like Sarah Polley is up to some things, or something like that, in Stories We Tell.
Yes.
That's a perfect sort of descriptor maybe of what's going on. So why don't you start us off?
Okay, before we get to
and you do look beautiful, by the way. You're not just
awesome. Spoiler alert, we'll let anybody who's watching know there's going to be a spoiler alert eventually. I want
good idea.
With this, which I found an interview with Polley from a few years ago. She made Stories We Tell and then didn't make another movie for a long time. She had kids.
I noticed that. Yeah, only she's
apparently
done television directing the last year, but she didn't put another.
So the interview was from 2019, and she was getting ready to start again. But this is what she said when asked what she thinks about such a positive reaction to this day to Stories We Tell. She said, I'm quoting now, "The fact that anyone saw a cohesive film in there is still amazing to me. For me, the legacy is that anyone thought it was an actual movie as opposed to just a complete mess that I never cleaned up. At no point did I feel like I knew what I was doing when I was making it. It just felt like such a mess. It felt really unpleasant."
Wow.
So that, I mean, I had to throw that in to start with, because when I watched it, especially the second time, I really felt the vision behind it and the coherence that I thought was there. And so it was interesting to me to read it and find out that she didn't even necessarily see that coherence herself when she was making it. Why I liked it, it messes with the documentary format in a different way than I'm used to. Documentaries often question the form as they're making it. But in this particular case, the trick, so to speak, should we give it away now?
Yeah, do it. Yep.
That the home movies were staged, which maybe I'm the one who thought that was remarkable, but when I realized at the very end of the movie, when it has the cast, it lists the storytellers, which are all the family members and stuff, and then it says, I don't remember their names, but so-and-so played the mom, so-and-so played Sarah Polley when she was 10. So, and I didn't notice this at all while I was watching it, that these home movies, which looked like home movies, they were faded and had scratches, and she made them up. I mean, I was stunned. And when I watched it again the second time, okay, I kind of knew it was there, because I knew it was there. And there's one point about 20 minutes from the end when she's shooting a scene, and you can see the actress playing her mom, like standing next to Sarah Polley as they shoot it, but they're shooting a home movie. And I don't know how I missed that the first time.
Okay, I think I did pick up on that because I just knew that I was seeing the fact that she would have home movies of everything that's being talked about
Yes.
struck
Yes.
me as just totally improbable. So I think I
Yes.
just at some point said, okay, these are reenactments. So I did pick up on that.
Yeah, I questioned it without, but I was so trusting. It was like, how the heck did she get all these movies? And then I just decided, well, she must have them. I didn't question it beyond that the first time around.
It certainly looked authentic. I'll grant you that.
Yeah, she did a great job with it, and because it's a documentary, I mean, it's not clearly not the only time someone made a documentary that questioned the making of a documentary and the reality of a documentary. I just felt that extra kick of the recreated home movies without telling us she was recreating the home movies, while everything else in the movie is very straightforward and transparent. It's like we hear her behind the camera doing the interviewing. We hear them talking. We know that she's going to edit it. They know that it's going to be edited. I'm not saying it's artless, but you think you know what she's up to, and she's up to way more than you think if all you think is that when she gets to the editing room, she's going to fix it.
Yeah, I will say I definitely had a like a wow reaction when there's the little sequence you mentioned near the end of the film, and it happens I think right around the time where the movie does start to become like a sort of a meta project a little bit. Like that's when they start to talk about who's really telling the story in this movie. I think she has the one dialogue with her father, not her it's her biological father. So when they have the one sort of dialogue and he's kind of arguing with her a little bit about, he's not crazy about the idea that she's opening the story up for everyone to tell. But I was stunned when they had that and I think it's actually more of a montage where she was suddenly, there was a frame and she was in the frame with her mother in the kitchen, and you can see all the cameras and stuff around. I was actually completely taken aback by that. I was totally, the whole time I'm like, wow, her mother is like, this beautiful woman, very mysterious. It's amazing that they've got all this great footage of her, but it sort of makes sense because they're obviously a family that's, comes right out of the arts and stuff like that. Their whole, theater and all of the
They
kids.
talked about the father buying the camera, right? And,
right. So it
just
sort of made
all the
sense
time.
that they had it. But I remember still thinking like, oh my God, that's bizarre. Like, and then I was actually going to turn it, like I was going to rewind a little bit after that scene to see, did I just see that right? Like, did I see Sarah Polley like with the woman who was playing her mother in all this old footage? But I decided not to bother. I said, no, just sit through the movie. I was actually really enjoyed the movie, so I wanted to keep it going. The other thing I found odd, and this is what I thought was a bit of a tip off to it, that something odd was up, but I certainly didn't leap to the conclusion that she was, playing around with reality and all that stuff. But it seemed so odd to me that she would sometimes intersperse when she was telling stories about her father, not the biological one, but the one who ended up being her father. And there would be footage of her having a conversation with him, but that was going back like at least 10 years or something like that. So obviously they had makeup people or something do him like that. Like, do you remember seeing those scenes? Like there were clearly scenes where it looked like, okay, her father now looks like he's 10 years younger, and yet he's being interviewed around a kitchen table or something. Like they don't show her, but it just seemed, that's weird. Like, did they just film everything that went on in this household? Like, I remember it just made me think, this is odd. Like, how either they're restaging this or they just have some footage that looks like it could fit. So they're doing, I thought it was really weird.
There's a shot near the end again, like when we see her mom. It's when there's the guy who plays her biological dad when he's younger, and like 5 seconds they're putting gray in his mustache. Okay, again, I certainly didn't notice it the first time I saw this movie, but it was like such a giveaway now because I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
Why are they making that guy up? Yeah.
This one scene that you guys are talking about where she shows up with the actress that's playing her mom. My attention must have been wandering because I don't know what scene you're talking about. I'm sure it's in there. It went right by me.
I did double check tonight. It's definitely, well, of course, yeah. But I think if you 15 minutes from the end, as Steven says, and I do think it's at the point where they're really starting to delve into the meta narrative or whatever you want to call it about the movie. Like I think even Sarah Polley's, I think she's maybe even doing a voiceover in that part about, making a documentary and what is the purpose of a documentary, or how do you.
I guess by that point, I'd probably just decided that, yeah, this home footage, it must have been shot for the film, because it's just too coincidental that she has all this footage that fits the whole film perfectly. Am I to assume then also that, where they had the documentary on her biological father that looked like a legitimate old NFB film, was that fake too? Or
I mean, he's real. I mean, that's really who he is. He's got a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, it just seems odd that someone would shoot a documentary on him. He doesn't seem like someone that would warrant.
He was a producer. They showed it in the thing, Lies My Father.
Yes, which I've never seen, which was
got like an Oscar, I think, for that.
I don't know if you remember, Scott, that was a big Canadian film at the time.
Sort of. I do remember the title, and yeah, I never saw it or anything, but
right around the time of the Great Fox and there was a whole bunch of films that turned out to be famous Canadian films, mid-70s.
Another thing
I said earlier. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, it's that line you mentioned right at the start about how Sarah Polley is up to a lot. It's part of it. She's clearly playing with the documentary format and with the idea that everybody has a different memory, even if it's just slight, of the same events. And then the way she juxtaposes all the different stories that different people tell. But that's not odd. That's how people do it. But there's two things she does that I think are particular. One is the reshooting the home movies. But the other one is having her dad read the narrative.
Yeah, I like that.
Which, if the story is true, it's told in the movie. After she told him the story, he went and wrote for 2 days, and what he's reading isn't what she wrote; it's what he wrote. I think that's what's going on, and so that's another thing that's going on there. Sarah Polley making a movie about her family and her relationship with her father, who writes about their relationship, and then she uses him to do the narrative for the movie. That's just complicated, I guess, is the best way I could say it, in a good way.
No, I like that. Another thing I liked about it, and I don't know if this is unique, you guys have probably seen a lot more documentaries. Maybe you've seen this. I'm sure it's shown up in some other documentaries, but I do like the way part of what she does with the interviews with her, particularly with her brothers and her sisters, is not only does she get the story out of them about her mother and all that, she embeds throughout at various points their own feelings about being filmed and about talking about this stuff, which is it's a little bit of a different device too, right? Like it's not straight up storytelling, and it makes the making a documentary itself part of the story. I did really like that. I thought it was an incredibly, like, I don't want to just say skillful, because that sounds almost like a backhand compliment, but it was extraordinarily skillful, and I actually found it very moving. So I think she really pulled it off. I really liked it. What did you think about it, Phil? You haven't said your reaction so much.
Well, I wanted you guys to speak. I liked it. I certainly thought it was really well made, and from that aspect and everything. I don't think I was all that moved by it, which I'm just going to put down to the fact I didn't have a great weekend. I hate long weekends, so it's got nothing whatsoever to do with the film. How you react to a film has a lot to do with how you're feeling.
Right.
No, that's fair.
The one thing I'll say, I guess the central idea of it, that everybody has their own version of the truth. I didn't find that to be too astounding, because that's the whole the Rashomon thing, which has been done by so many films. I thought that was a very basic idea. I'm not saying she didn't do it well. I didn't find it eye-opening or anything. And a lot of documentaries that I watched, that's implicit in the film. They don't talk about it, but
Right.
You have many different even the Weather Underground film that we're going to talk about, right? That's kind of the same thing. You know, you get Todd Gitlin's version of it, and you get their version of it, and their versions of it don't jive either, right? You get some that are really down on it, and others that are sort of in between. So I think that's just kind of inherent in any documentary. There's not one person who's going to say this is what happened. Very well made. I noticed also she not only hasn't she directed since then, more or less, she's basically stopped acting too. So I don't think she thinks of herself as an actress anymore. I was trying to think, I was looking at her filmography and looking at all the films I've seen her, and she is a very good actress. She was, I don't know if either of you ever seen The Sweet Hereafter, the Adam McGowan film?
No, I will at some point. I think that's on Criterion, maybe.
Yeah, you should see that. That's one that I was a little neutral on when I first saw it, because actually I compared it. I compared both it and The Ice Storm negatively to Boogie Nights, saying that something, you know, these other two films have the death of children, and here I'm much more moved by this stupid make-believe porno family. But I came around to love The Ice Storm, and when I went back to The Sweet Hereafter years later, really liked it. I don't want to get off topic here, but she's really good in that. She's in Go, which I've seen. She's in Splice, which I've seen.
Dawn of the Dead.
What's it called?
Dawn of the Dead, the remake from.
Oh, the Romero film? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. And I sat right a row behind her once at the documentary festival. I think it was the Isabel Bader Theater, not the Lightbox. And I can't remember what we were there to see.
Did that movie seem particularly Canadian to you?
I actually think it did.
There's Toronto and Montreal, there's that. And
what about going to Montreal to do a play called Toronto?
Yeah, that was neat, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
That was neat. But I actually did want to pose. I forgot about that, Stephen. I'm glad you brought that up. I actually wanted to mention to Phil, obviously, more particularly, but I did find I cannot put my finger on it at all, but for me, and maybe it's just my knowledge going into it, but for me, there just felt something very Toronto about that movie. I couldn't quite put my finger on why. Like, is there something inherent in, excuse me, like in the Toronto character that came up? I just feel like I could see those people sitting in a cafe on Bloor Street or something. Like, it just felt, there's just something about it. And I haven't been like someone who's, like, I've been in, I call it semi-suburbia now for like quite some years and married with kids. So I rarely even go downtown Toronto anymore. But when I sort of did live that life, I just really felt like, wow, there's something very familiar with it about me. So I'm curious, Phil, if you felt that, and if so, if you have any explanation as to why that might be so. It's a mystery.
I'll have to think about that.
Maybe you didn't feel that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling that way when I watched it, but I'll give that some thought. I'll mention this is real Toronto centric here, Stephen. Scott and I noticed one person who may have been in the film and two people who are definitely in the credits. When she, she's shooting that film and where she's doing a prehistoric scene. Remember, she gets the call from the reporter. And boy, you really hate that reporter at that moment. Like, he wants to get with the story. But I think
from the Toronto Star, I think they said.
Yeah,
right?
I think she managed to talk him out of it. Anyway, she goes over to the park to collect her thoughts. I don't think that was shot in Montreal. I think that was shot in Toronto's Queen's Park. And the guy crosses in front of the camera at one point, who I really believe is Cameron Bailey, who we used to write with and went on to become the head of the Toronto International Film Festival. He's had a rotten beginning to his career because he's went right into the pandemic. Anyway, I think he's in it. And then in the credits is there are thank yous, because Stephen, I know you like to watch those thank yous. There's a thank you to Helen Lee, who we used to write with on The Nerve, and I had a huge crush on. Still haven't gotten over that.
So Phil loves seeing the name in the credits.
I ripped it right out of the
You
machine.
broke my heart, and you're in Sarah Polley movie.
You broke my heart. And Alan Zweig, who's interviewed both of us for a film that we can't, this is a very touchy subject with Scott and I, so we're not going to get off track here, but it looks like we're both, at least I am, headed towards the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
So those two thank yous did not elevate the film. I shouldn't say that. Alan Zweig could actually watch this, but
that's funny.
Anyway, so that was the Toronto-centric part of it for me. I wasn't really noticing a lot of locations.
Maybe it was maybe just the general feel of some of the scenery felt familiar or something. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just felt like there's something even about the people that felt there was a familiar air to it or something to me. But again, if I'd seen the exact same movie and not known that it was made by someone from Toronto, would I have felt that at all? I mean, that would be the real test. I did want to say,
go ahead.
I'll just say this one last thing. I think this is my last thought on the movie itself, but one thing I also found a little odd about it, and maybe I'm almost wondering if this is why the movie sort of developed the way it did into this kind of other narrative, is that, like, in some ways, like, not that much happens. Like, I remember about 20 or 30 minutes into it, I thought, wow, like, either something like crazy is going to happen, and my mind started racing towards terrible things. Like, I hope someone, there isn't a violent act committed by someone or something, though you think, well, but then I thought, but we probably would have known about that because, these are kind of famous people.
Yeah.
But I thought either something crazy is going to happen with one of these people, or the story, like the main story has kind of already been revealed. And I remember at one point I was kind of, metaphorically looking at my watch and thinking, what more is there going to be to say in this movie? I don't really get it. Like, it's pretty clear now that this guy is the father. So where is it going to go from here? And it sort of has a little further to go in terms of that plot trajectory, but not really. Like, it's more than about making a documentary, is the way I sort of interpreted it. So that was interesting. Like, it's not like a movie where you get the reveal an hour and 15 minutes into it. It's like maybe 30 minutes or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think part of the trick is it seems like we've gotten the reveal early. And again, I just use the word transparent. It's like she's not even making us wait. She is making us wait in the terms of the credits when we find out that the whole movies were recreated. So there was something still to go, but we think there isn't anything left to go because, like you say, Scott's like, okay, I got this story. Okay, that guy's the dad. Oh, blah, blah, blah.
The reveal took a little bit of a left turn, though, in that I was fished in. I thought it was going to be the actor. She clearly resembled him, right?
Well, did you catch the movie ends on a joke, eh? I thought the movie ends on a great joke because is it Jeff Bose? He reveals at the end that, well, we did actually sleep together once. And if you remember, the DNA test was like 99.7% accurate or something like that. I think that's deliberate, that she's trying to suggest that maybe there's a 0.3% chance. I mean, it's obviously a little ludicrous, but I thought she deliberately ended it on that. I thought that was kind of a good joke at the end. He actually
Did he say that? Was that in the credits?
No, not
just
in
before the credits.
No, just before the credits. He said, no, well, we did actually sleep together once or something like that. Like, I thought it was very funny, actually.
I didn't think of it as a question about the paternity. It was sort of a point on the whole idea that our memories are whatever they are, and then we tell them a different way, and that we've gotten to know him enough to assume that we knew that he not only wasn't the dad, but they were just friends. And then sort of tosses that in at the end for 5 seconds. Oh, by the way, I did lie about that one thing back then.
That's obviously a much better interpretation than mine, which is really completely far-fetched.
Well, I'm a sucker for it. I'm finding the more positive.
I liked her non-biological father a lot. He actually reminded me of Jackie's dad, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Really?
Being an actor, being British, and all that.
Yeah.
A couple of things that again, I wasn't moved by you guys as much as you guys were, and I followed the weekend for that. But a couple of minor things that didn't bother me hugely. But I found the impassivity of her face as she sat at the editing board listening. I just found that a little slightly off-putting. I don't know what kind of reaction I was hoping for. And then and I'm the first person to complain if somebody cries. So I don't know what I wanted, but she was just sort of stone-faced watching all that. And then the other thing was, and I'm going to apply this not just to her film, but to all documentaries, Frederick Wiseman's even. I think it's slightly, not disingenuous, but when she's talking to, and I like both fathers a lot, when she's talking to the biological father and he's saying, well, I think it was him, he's saying, what is this film about to you? Or maybe it was one of the brothers. Anyway, she's trying to explain. And then the brother has an idea, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things it's about, of course, is that she's a young filmmaker. She's got an idea and she wants to get attention for her film and win awards and get great reviews. That's a given for anybody that makes a documentary. It's true for Frederick Wiseman. I guess you just don't talk about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's just so assumed that it's not even worth talking about. But I thought, well, there's more to it while you're making this film than that. You've got a good idea and you want to get some attention and get your career launched.
I'm going to double back for the 18th time. I don't know, but when she's sitting there and she's reporting her dad reading the stuff that his dad had written, and I loved it. She did it more than once. Could you repeat that last line again?
Yeah,
I know.
I mean,
she had a funny way to say it. She said, she had a certain phrase.
Right. But it was okay. It was almost like beating the anvil, but in that, okay, we get it. But I liked it every time she did it, which is, oh yeah, by the way, let me break the fourth wall for a second. He's not just narrating. That's my dad in there. And by the way, could you read it again? They're right,
What was she asking for when was it that she wanted to call attention line or she wanted a better reading of it? I wasn't sure of that.
I assumed the latter, but
okay. Yeah, I think she wanted a different reading, but I took it also as the point in which she realized, yeah, she's got to go. What was it near the end when her dad breaks down, and he's like, so did you get what you want? And he says, that's vicious, or whatever word.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I wanted you to open up a little bit. Well, it sure worked.
Yeah.
I was on his side there because she asked him, what did you say when you went up and spoke to her? Like, who wants to reveal that in a film, right?
Yeah.
Her brother, one brother was funny though, when she was getting very serious about something and he said, how am I looking right now? Or something like, is this a good angle for me?
Yeah.
He bust out laughing. That was funny.
So the one thing,
said, my lawyer tells me not to answer that question.
That's right.
Yeah, it was good. They were good, actually. Phil, the one thing about her impassivity, as you called it, I actually thought about that at the time, but I didn't. I actually kind of liked it because I actually thought, my feelings about it were that, like, this is like a professional. Like, she's actually really treating this quite professionally. If you want to draw a good performance, and it is a performance, what she's drawing out of him there, especially during the reading, he's doing readings. And I actually remember thinking, like, yeah, I could, like, that's kind of interesting, the way she's just kind of sitting there. And it looks to me like she's just really listening. Oops, there I go. She's really listening to what kind of reading he's doing or whatever. I thought that's a kind of good depiction of an artist at work in some ways.
Even as I say that, I'm thinking, well, God, I'm thinking the ways she could have reacted, I probably would have complained about every one of them, so I think you make a good point.
Okay, well, you want to end this call and we'll go on to the next. Does anyone else want to add anything else? Or
I said everything I had to say. Sounds good.
Okay, good. I'll talk to you in a minute.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.